Hi, I'm Rose, and this is the Sovereign Soul podcast. I support awakening souls live beyond their ego and limitations to know true freedom. That true freedom is really about being able to feel like you're living your fullest potential, living a life of meaning and fulfillment. This world, though, and I speak about this because it is the truth, not because I want to scare people and not because I want to hurt people, not because I want to be a Debbie Downer, not because I'm a pessimist. I speak about this because it is a fact. It is the truth. It's what is happening. We can't hide from it and we can't pretend that it doesn't exist, because the fact of the matter is, here we are, like, I don't know, 8 billion people, let's just round it up, stuck on a rock together. Well, not necessarily stuck, but I think most people probably do feel like they are. And the world doesn't work for everybody. It works for very few people. And even then, I'm not sure that it's truly working for them. I think the people that it is working for. No, I can't make that statement. Maybe there are people who just are exceedingly happy, and if that is the case, and they've got all the things, all the experiences, living heart full in their highest vibration, then I totally retract that. So I won't say that it is not possible. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that most people are not sitting in that state of happiness, and that's just a fact. That's just the way it is, and people can either hide from that or they can openly and willingly and happily embrace that. Maybe not happily, because it sucks balls. But how on earth, pardon the pun, did it get to this? Like, how did the world get to the state that it's in? There are so many flawed systems that you wouldn't even know where to start. Like, how does a person make an impact when there are so many causes to try and right? I say right because there's so many causes trying to beat terrible things on the planet, but then it all just gets tied up in bureaucracy and red tape and paperwork, and then more what's the thing called, corruption, that there isn't a system that works. And when the little people at the bottom try and stand up and fight, their help just gets lost. So we are literally saving that one starfish at a time, the people who are fighting for this planet. I say we because we're one organism. I'm definitely not one of these people who are out there screaming from the rooftops, or I wasn't. But now maybe that is exactly what I am becoming, because I think that's exactly what this world needs, more people to speak up. And so I want to talk about today, such a long introduction, and I'm sorry if it's so boring, although at the moment I don't think anybody's even listening to this, so I am just putting it out there because I need to get it out there. And maybe one person, maybe one starfish is listening. So hey, I apologize for my absolute rawness and my unfiltered fluff and my no frills approach. I literally am just recording this shit and putting it on my podcast because I think it needs to be heard. Okay, now let me get to what I actually wanted to talk about today, or in this episode. I want to talk about, how did the earth get to the point that it's at? Well, I mean, there are, I'm sure, so many different theories. Most people are stuck on planet Earth in their body, living their life, and I don't think they even think beyond their own survival and their own little world of who's around them. And even then, mostly people are just stuck in their own worlds anyway. So I want to pose the question of how, where, what caused this massive catastrophe, because the world is catastrophic. It is not okay. We have one person suffering, or one element of our planet suffering. We're all suffering. That is a fact. We can't actually retract from that. We are one. We all come from one source. And therefore, when you fully connect to that oneness and you are not in a space of separation anymore, so you've woken up to understand, I know what those spiritual limitations have been, the amnesia, and you start remembering, you will never be able to unremember that you are one. That is just the way it rolls. So we're all one. We all come from the same source. Yet here we come to this earth and everybody feels separated from that source. And the more separated people feel, the more it can perpetuate the catastrophe of what the earth is. I'm not one of those fluffy spiritual teachers who talk about high frequencies coming to save our earth. I'm not that person. I try to be as honest and realistic and truthful as possible. And the fact of the matter is, to heal this planet, you have to heal yourself. You are the frequency that needs to change and get stronger, bigger, brighter, higher. Nothing wrong with getting high. It's really that's the truth. It's got nothing to do with something coming in there to save us. I think that is just another way to bypass or avoid your own personal responsibility. And personal responsibility means you're taking care of yourself only, actually. You only have to take care of yourself. And yes, on all levels, but most people don't even have the capacity to do that. I, again, am deviating, but I just need to give a little bit of backstory. So I'm going to start at the beginning in the picture on how I see the creation, perhaps of all existence. So if there was just one source, and this is all that existed, it was just one beautiful energy, one beautiful thing, which could have been a feeling, it could have been a knowing, it could have been just an element of bliss, just an absolute oneness with all things. And that's what it was. And maybe it was that for gazillions and billions and millions of years. There's still an element of that oneness that still exists, and it exists within all of us. Now, from that existence of all, that source, there became a fraction that got separated, because that source, that oneness, that thing of everything, realized it could experience itself differently. It didn't only need to experience itself just as this oneness. And so I believe original thought, this is what I'm shown. And I say when I'm shown, I do have my cosmic journeying parts of me too, which may sound fluffy to people who's really out there, or maybe I'll just sound completely weird and totally fucking mad. I don't know. So shown in meditation, shown in just the knowing, when I myself am connecting to a much bigger picture. So original thought is what sparked individuation or fractions of this source. It's not a fraction as in a separation. It still belongs to the whole. It's just an individuated experience of that whole. And so that is how creation began. And so there became stars, and so there became planets, and there became different kind of gases, and on those planets, different kinds of things formed, and lives formed, and life forms formed, and individuation to the point of a soul of a human being formed. This was all from an original thought that sprung that fraction from the whole. And across the entire universe, and across all the multiverses. And in all of that creation, there was a planet called Earth. That was one of those things. And so Earth was there. And on Earth, human beings started forming, but different kinds of beings. There weren't always only humans here. There were different kinds of humans, different kinds of animals, different kinds of insects, different kinds of things that could live on Earth and experience. So the source could experience itself as all those different things. And then along came human beings. They were part of all of this. Before, there were tribes, there were people living in oneness with the land, having wonderful, beautiful experiences close to spirit, which is that source, the knowing of themselves, the remembering of their own divinity, living beautiful long lives. Some came and didn't need to eat, and then maybe that evolved into the process of eating too, but ultimately beings that lived on Earth, they came and they went over again, I think, millions of years. And then there was a fraction that understood where it came from, but then also had a thought that perhaps that it could experience itself and play a game to know itself as the only source. So it has already separated, and it has thought of itself and all the things and all the creation as separate from itself, actually, because it saw that if it could be the source, then everything in that would need to bow to it. Everything in it would praise it, because now it thought that it's knowing itself, as opposed to getting others to know it. So needing others to know it in order for it to feel important. That is really, in a nutshell, what that fraction of source was. And so that came down onto Earth and experienced itself. And it's an energy which has grown over time and become more and more and more and more empowered. And so it started planting seeds into the people. It started planting seeds that were not of the memory of we come from the whole, experience ourselves and knowing ourselves. It started becoming seeds of separation, and also separation of knowing that we were all equal, that all of a sudden you can have power over something. So perhaps offering something better. So here's the beautiful catch. I'm going to give you some truth, but there's going to be a lie underneath that. And in that lie, there's going to be a little bit of a catch. And that catch is you are no longer your own sovereign being that comes from that whole, that comes from that source. You are now under this fraction, which calls itself God, and you now will belong to me and work for me, and I will promise you all sorts of things. I will promise you good life. I will promise you families and love and money and status and you name it, and I'm going to give you that. And in return, this is going to, like the people don't know this, the beings that are being told, like, hey, you give it all up to me and I'm going to give it all to you, that each one that keeps believing in it keeps making it bigger and making it stronger. But the thing is, it's quite easy to go down and say to people, so it is a little bit like, I suppose, the Garden of Eden kind of story. And I'm sure that this is where all these kind of myths do come from. They all come from someone remembering and then trying to pass the story on, and then it being hijacked again and then distorted to control. Because you can't come down to people or beings who fucking know who they are and say, hey, now know me as what you want. You've got to put it in there in a way, like I said, there's got to be some truth in it. It's got to be worth it. You've got to sell them something that makes them worth it. So how do you do that? There's no better way than to try and convince somebody to do something than making them afraid. So fear, bring the fear into people. So there's that saying, the fear of God. So I am shown that God and Satan are one and the same. It's the same fucking coin, just a different side, which needed to be created to get more control. And then each one is fed, because all of a sudden the one becomes another matrix, because there are multiple matrices. So you got the one at the top, and then that's split, and then you're going to split another and another and another, because hey, not all people look the same. Therefore, they've got different ways that they've been dealing with the earth. So we're going to just come in, and we're going to have to accommodate all people in a way that will get as many of these souls to give their soul and their power, so their individuated experience of source, they're going to give that over to this fraction of source, call it God. So that is how this began. Now, I used to look back at this, and obviously that has happened over millennia, and then become what it is. And so I've looked at this, and I thought, well, that's interesting. Back in the day, I remember when the first thoughts I had was like, white people are aliens. Because white people, I understand, brought religion, which is not necessarily true. I think there were apparently some tribes in South America that definitely had religious and quite violent tendencies. I think that then there were also tribes in Africa that had that. So I think that concept that I have already spoken of, or the story that I've already shared, those seeds of separation were already being planted, because I think before that there was just literal peace and happiness. Everybody knew who they were, and they didn't need or want anything else. They didn't want power over anyone else. They didn't want more than anyone else. There wasn't greed and power yet, or fear. So the fear, the greed, the power, that is what has created this situation on earth, in order to keep whatever's at the top its strongest and most powerful. Now, belief systems create reality. It is a fact. There's no way to get around that. So each person, each soul that keeps believing in that force that is holding this earth, that has taken, seized, and hijacked this earth, and I'm saying energetically, spiritually, each one that believes in it reinforces its strength and strengthens the binds and the hold that it has over this earth. So I deviate a little bit when I said white people. I believe that white people are aliens. I think that there was definitely a dark energy that came when all of a sudden, not industrial, but cities started being formed, and that hierarchy became so prevalent in human beings. And hierarchies, whether that be in, royals, or whether it be in, however royals play out, or then, they could put that down into government positions and basically status. So anywhere that there was this form of hierarchy, the higher up on the chain you were, then the more benefits you got, the more recognition you got, the more power you had over others. And the easier, in a sense, your life became. So people wanted to aspire to that. And then with all these religions forming, the best way to do that, of course, is make people afraid. Make people forget completely and entirely who they are, where they came from. They owe a soul to there. And so we can keep their souls, and we can keep their souls coming back. Now, I'm going to speak maybe a little bit beyond, and maybe it's jumping a little bit, but time and space doesn't exist. So we could be having multiple experiences at the same time, because that's always the question. It's like, why are there so many of us? Are these just new souls constantly coming in? Or are these just maybe split fragments of their own souls that are having all these experiences at the same time? Well, perhaps it's both. I don't know. One thing that I have learned is the more I learn, the less I know, and that all possibilities exist. And so here we sit. We're sitting on a planet that is being governed by something that is very power hungry and greedy, and wants absolute domain over this planet. And it has infiltrated those seeds of dominance into the leadership, and that leadership has worked out how to have that direct access, not necessarily to the top of the pyramid, but through it. And there are multiple energetic grids and lines that hold this planet in place in its disgustingness. And those are the matrix. And like I say, there are these matrices which are all just different systems in place. So every different religion, and then every different sect from that religion. So it's kind of genius. It's so messy and so separating, because every time there's a different one, remember, it becomes an individual and more individuated experience of that soul, who then starts identifying with thinking, well, I believe in God, but I believe in God this way, and then everybody else is wrong, because if everybody else is right, that means I'm wrong and I could go to hell, or I am going to be eternally damned, or I'm going to be stuck in purgatory, or I'm not going to be saved, or whatever the story is. It's pretty scary. People are pretty scared about what happens after they die. People are pretty scared about where they go, what happens to their loved ones. I think it's probably one of the biggest fears on this planet is the fear of death. And I think it's why COVID was so easy, because make people afraid of the one inevitable. Then what? You're going to have complete and entire control over them. So again, I've spoken about this, where I tell you that what is happening on Earth and the hierarchy system and the way the Earth is governed is no different to what's happening energetically in the spiritual realm around Earth. And I say around Earth because I'm not sure if it's further than that, because honestly, that I've never seen. I've only recently even been asking that question, but before it's never even popped into my head. I suppose maybe I'm a slow learner, and so I can only ask questions according to the speed at which I catch up and remember shit. But ultimately, I don't see it beyond Earth. It's interesting because what I do, and I'm sure that people can vouch for me who have astral projected, or maybe just taken insane amounts of psychedelic drugs, but you can leave your body. We're not stuck in this body, actually, because we are infinite. We are all the spaces in between too. And so we have the capacity to see from different angles. We don't only have to see through the eyes inside this human body, in the head, in the room, in the space that we're in. We have the capacity to see everywhere and everything. And so I have seen the Earth from off the Earth. And what happens is, when I've meditated and then it takes me out the whole atmosphere around, and then I'm at a distance and I'm watching this thing and I see this thing. And that is how it's shown me how this energy grid is there sitting toyed around this Earth. And like I say, every single different system is a different matrix, and so it keeps binding and creating more confusion and more disconnect for people to know their truth, to remember themselves. So each thing keeps forming another kind of contract. And it is a contract. You get spiritual contracts, energetic contracts, and actual physical contracts. Human beings come onto Earth and we are signed into contracts through a hospital, through our government, through religion. You can't join a church just by walking in and going, hey, happy days, hallelujah, I'm with you. You have to fucking sign a piece of paper. It's insane. And you also have to, of course, give your soul away. Now, I've just given a little brief history on how I see this, because I think it's important for people to understand how this was all formed, why, and for what purpose. It's literally for power. It's literally for power. It's a self-fucking made power-hungry force that sits around Earth. And it's such a massive thing for somebody to see, and then have it land in you, and then to try and communicate it without sounding like a complete fucking nut job. And I'm pretty sure I sound like a complete fucking nut job. But anyway, I'm still going to say it, because this is what I see as the truth, it's like I know it to be the truth. I haven't got all the answers figured out yet. Trust me, I'm still asking questions because there's still some stuff that is uncertain in me. But I do know that without that, I wouldn't be who I am, in the sense that I would still be completely entrapped and ensnared in the system. And I say the system, the earth, because like I said to you, there are way too many different moving parts to this whole thing. And those parts are not just in the physical life we're living in on this physical earth, on every continent, in every country, in every little city, in every town, in every village, on every farm. It's a lot. And the rot and the mess and the yuck, it's infiltrated pretty much everywhere. So that's just earth. You got to go, like I say, outside of earth. And then you realize there's a whole nother fucking game being played there that keeps human beings trapped in that. And through religion and through spiritual beliefs. That is the worst part of it. That is the sickest part of all of it, is it's mostly done through that. The consciousness you die with is the consciousness you're born with. I've been an energy healer for 10 years, and it's the only understanding that I've been able to create. I say energy healer because when I look into people, I deal with people's consciousness, their beliefs, their patterns, their soul burdens. And why is one person's life, flying and awesome, and another person's life is stuck on, I don't know, a really low vibe where it just seems so unfortunate. And this is only because we all have different consciousnesses, and it depends on what that consciousness is. But ultimately, wherever there is a hierarchy, including in consciousness, there is going to be an inequality, I mean. And the inequality is not only on this earth, it's also in the spiritual realm. So people put themselves back into situations. They don't know that they're doing it to themselves, though. This is where the spiritual amnesia comes from. There's been an implant put in to human beings. Without doubt, I see this. And again, I might sound completely fucking nuts. But having done thousands of healings in these 10 years, I literally can see that there is a handful of programs that our story plays out. So we all have different individual experiences, but how those experiences play out is in a handful of ways, which is fascinating, like a fucking program, a computer program, call it what you like. I don't know enough about that to believe that it is computer generated, but maybe it is. I don't know. Like I say, all possibilities exist. But ultimately, that when we die, we keep coming back because we have forgotten. And every time you come into the body, you keep forgetting. So you can't really make progress, can you? And when I say it's the religions and the spirituality that keeps us stuck there, is that maybe people want to believe in a fluffiness. Maybe they want to believe, oh, I'm the chosen one. I must keep coming back to save people. Or maybe they're still totally attached to family and concepts that you can only be with these people you love if you had to come back to earth, or through God and then a reincarnation. And like I've said, and I'll say it again, the main religions on this planet keep souls coming back here because they can just chuck you back. So first of all, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, you have to give your soul to God, okay? This energy that wants power over us. Because the truth is, we own our own soul, and it all belongs to one big whole. So that shouldn't be in the mix, actually. That in itself, I've said it before, is a massive red flag. Okay, that's problematic. Keeps you in the contract of this earth mess. And then, of course, you get religions that, like Hinduism and Buddhism, that talk about reincarnation from the perspective of needing to keep reincarnating until you gain enlightenment, which of course is again just keep perpetuating the problem. It doesn't allow everyone equally, as knowing that we're all the same at the core, to have a chance to get the fuck out of here if they want to. And I say like that when you die, like that you don't need to keep perpetuating the situation, because the fact of the matter is we're in the belly of the beast, okay? And the only way to stop the beast is to stop feeding the beast. Coming back to this earth over and over and over and over again is feeding the beast. It's a fact. And the only way to stop the suffering when we die, this is when we die, I'm not talking about while we're in the body, is to stop feeding the beast. So stop coming back. Understand your spiritual sovereignty. Understand your soul belongs to you, and stop feeding it back into this fucking system. Get yourself the fuck out the matrix. And I can say, again, it's knowing, I can't prove it, but there are multiple other dimensions and universes and planets to live on. And I believe that they are peaceful and kind and loving and emotionally intelligent. That is where I would rather be, rather than keep feeding this. So that is when we die. But while we're in the body, we're here, we're living on earth, we've chosen this. You have to believe you've chosen it. Otherwise, you don't get your sovereignty back. It still belongs to that God or whatever God or thing you believe in. If you believe that it is making your life what your life is, you are still feeding it, and you don't have sovereignty over yourself. And therefore, you will still continue to feed that. So in this life, if you want to get out of that matrix, you're going to have to do the exact opposite of what everybody else on this planet is taught to do. And you're going to have to start thinking for yourself, and you're going to have to take absolute personal responsibility for yourself and become self-empowered. And in that self-empowerment, you can learn to be a light in the darkness. It is scary as fuck. Trust me. I walk through the darkness and I get scared. I get so fucking scared because it's also what we taught. We taught to fear the darkness. Ugly is ugly. And it is yucky when that's not really the core of who you are. But you got to learn to love in spite of it. You've got to learn to shine brighter. Be the light in the darkness. And that is where the work sits of the individuals, because there are two ways that it can go. You can stop feeding it after you die, and you can also stop feeding it from within. And from within, you will teach other people how to become empowered so that they can stop feeding it from without after they die. People can return to their source. They can return to their oneness when they know that that's where they come from. So when you remember, you help someone else remember, and so the ripple effect goes, and that will make a happier, more beautiful world. My passion in life is freeing souls, if I can say that, which sounds absolutely awful when I say it out loud, but I want people to be free. I want humans to be free. I want this earth to be free. I want people to be happy. I want people to live loving lives. I don't want anybody to have power over anybody. I want people to know the right thing because they know the right thing in their soul and in their being. That to me is fucking power. Not power over someone else, but just absolute power over yourself to fucking know how to live your fullest potential and be the most loving, most awesome human being you can. That is valuable. That means something. Okay, I think that is quite a mouthful. Like I say, I don't even know if anyone will ever even listen to this, but I just need to get it out there.